Hi guys, I want to thank you for taking some time out of your day to enjoy this course. What it is I've designed this course to be just a little section of a larger one that I'm putting out. And what this one is there's some key points right when you attend a loss in a strata lot. So there's a couple of key points right at the start of the process that I think if you get these right, it helps the flow of the emergency stage go a lot smoother. The information that goes to the adjusters or to the property managers or agents, as well as the council members, there's some really key points in here that I think that is really important, and I thought that I would put it together in a bit of a PowerPoint slide so that it's the flow would make sense. Now this is just right up to the point where you would start the mitigation procedure. So to start off, a little bit about myself. I've been in the industry for probably about 15 years or so. I've taken multiple courses, as you can see by the first slide there. I've been a project manager at two different restoration companies for just a little over 10 years. And I've been a flood technician. I've also been, I've dealt with fire and smoke. I've also had carpet cleaning and upholstery cleaning background where I've dealt with specialty fabrics. So, but the most important part of it is when you get into large loss and commercial and industrial losses, there's certain points or places where you really need to understand the building and understand how it's constructed, as well as how to dry it out properly using the HVAC system and putting all these different components together. So enough about me. So I just wanted to show you that I do have a bit of a background in what I speak about, and I want to make sure that you're not just getting it from someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. So this is basically the first of probably many courses that I'll put out, but this is a key one that I want to make sure that it sets the tone for the course that will be coming out. So to start off, when I have an initial call from either a property manager or a council member, I want to make sure right away that I get their name, their phone number, and their address, just in case we get disconnected for any reason. I drop the call or I'm in and out of service. So I want to make sure that I grab that information right at the start before we get into any details. Also, while I'm speaking with them, I want to find out if the source has been disconnected, if it's been shut off, or it's been extinguished. If it's a fire, has the fire department been called? Which normally in a complex, the emergency fire suppression system triggers it right away, so they get called regardless. Also want to find out a couple of details with regards to if it's what the source is, how many units have been affected. So it starts to formulate in my mind the extent of the damage, the size of it, and what I'm going to need to put together for an emergency response team, whether the technicians or sub-trades if I need to have them right away. So I know that they're under a lot of pressure and stress right at this moment because there's either water coming through ceilings or there's smoke billowing out of the units. So I want to make sure that I keep them calm and help them to know that they made the right call calling us and that we are en route. Also want to make sure that before we show up that they have a collected thought of getting keys together for access to all the units that they figure that would be affected. Not only that, I would also want to make sure that I have access to the units on each side, because sometimes it tends to migrate underneath walls. Also, as soon as I get off the phone with the person who called, I want to notify the technicians. If I figure that it's going to be something that I'm going to need help with, I'm going to notify technicians. So now when we've dispatched, we're getting to the site, we want to make sure that we don't congest the property. So either when you show up, there could be fire trucks on site. We want to make sure we keep a block away. If that's the case, we don't want to disrupt any type of emergency response teams. They have priority. If it's that type of a loss where it's large enough to have emergency, either fire department or police called to site, you want to make sure that you give them their room that they need. That's the most important. Also, there's sometimes contractor parking stalls that you can arrange to get parking passes. Grab that from the property manager or the Strata council member, so that each person that comes to the site bearing your name, your company name, will have parking passes, and they won't be in the way of any either residents or emergency teams. So when I get to the site, even though there's a lot of sometimes confusion or a lot of anxiousness, I want to make sure that I remain calm, and my photos are so important that you want to make sure you have that first front elevation picture of the building, of the complex that you are going to be working in, as well as I usually take two. I want to make sure that I have a picture of the actual civic address, so that I have the picture of the building and then a picture of the actual address of that building, so that that's crystal clear, there's no mistakes. That's what I have, and that's the complex that we'll be working in. So as I'm going towards, at this point, there's probably going to be a lot of people coming up to you. You're going to be discussing a little bit with the property manager or the person that called you to the complex. But before you even enter that door of the affected unit, I want to make sure I have my camera ready and take that photo, because you can get pulled in hundreds of different directions if there's multiple units affected. So you really want to make sure that you take the photo of that affected unit, that source unit, right away before you even enter. You can either knock on the door, and while they're waiting to come and open the door, take a quick picture of that unit door number, and then enter into the unit. So then once you've been able to establish what that source, so the cause and the origin of that water loss or fire loss, as it is, whichever the reason for that happening, you want to make sure you take a picture of that source right away. So you have the front picture of the unit, and then you have the picture of the cause. So those two are really important to get right at the start, so that, because you're going to have questions either that day or the next day or a day afterwards, that the insurance company are going to want to know what caused this water loss or the damages. So that's so important to make sure that you have that, and because it's going to be asked. You also, after you're doing that, you're going to be starting to take photos of what's affected and what's not in the units, either the source unit or as well as the affected units. So you're going to be getting moving along, mapping out each individual area, and as you move away from the source, it's going to get less affected. So you want to make sure it's all mapped out. So as you're going down, if it's a top unit and it's affected multiple units below, each unit that you go up to that you know that's affected, same thing. Take a picture of that unit door before you even go in. You want to make sure that that sets the tone for the package, the photo package of each unit. So they all, otherwise you're going to go back to your photos and they're going to be all over the place. You're going to have unit as this one 1701 and you're going to have unit 1501 pictures right afterwards. But so you don't want to mix those photos, because it'll be very confusing as you provide those packages to the adjuster or whoever needs to have that information in the next few days. So as well as within the units, sometimes it gets to the point where there is common property. So common hallways, these are areas that are not within the units, the contained units. So these are common hallways. You want to make sure that you take a picture. What I do is I tend to take a picture of the actual floor number, and if I can get it in the same shot as the affected area of that hallway, I like to do that as well. But sometimes it's not the case. You could be halfway down the hallway and you won't be able to get a unit number or a floor number. Sometimes you can get a unit number of the door in that picture. If you can, great, but just as long as you can make sure that if the hallways are affected, get a picture of that numbered hallway. So another great thing that I usually try to do is, if common hallways are affected, right when you walk out of the elevator, or if you're walking out towards a stairwell or into a stairwell, they post the schematics. So as you can see on this slide, you can see the common hallways, and then you can see the unit numbers. So if you can take a picture of that, it'll show kind of this is pretty detailed, but a lot of times it'll show all the units on that floor, and then the hallway, and then you can bring that back to the office, and you can even do a little bit of a drawing, like a hand-drawn thing that you can map out the affected areas. So that's every bit of detail that you have is great to forward it on to your forward it on as a photo package to the adjusters or to the Strata Council. So after all of this has been performed, then what you're going to need before you start the mitigation process, so as soon as you have your technician's boots, right on to starting to do extraction or handling any type of material, either contents related within the unit or within the building, you want to make sure that you have a signed work authorization form. So this would be somebody who has authorization to have that signature made, either a council member. You can also, if you work with certain property management companies, they may already have this on file, so they can just fill in a little bit of the information and then email it off to you in the office, so that you have that work order ready to proceed, and you shouldn't have issues with it if it's pretty straightforward. Also, if there's any tenant improvements, so any within the units themselves, they could have contents that are affected, so their couches or their TVs or anything to do with that's not connected to the building could be affected, as well as maybe tenant improvements would be laminate flooring or crown moldings on the roof. So anything like this, you're going to want to need a separate work authorization from the occupant of the unit, so that you can have authorization to handle their contents or handle their betterments within the unit. So work authorizations are mandatory. That's something that you need to have on your first visit. So after you've been able to collect that data, the information, there's going to be a crew chief that's already dispatched that you've contacted, and they're gonna arrive on site. What you're gonna want to do is go through each, starting at the source unit, perform a walkthrough with your crew chief. So take the time, spend with them. Okay, this is the source of the loss. This is the category of loss. This is the classification of loss. And this will give them an idea of what to expect on how to handle the building material. If it's category 3, that's a whole different course. They want to make sure they have the proper PPE, their protection, and they're not going to do everything all at the first day, but you can go over the broad scope of work that needs to be done in each of the units. And also what needs to be done inside each of the unit is a proper risk assessment. So, and this can be posted right when you walk into their door. I tend to not, myself personally, not post it on the front of their door. So if you're walking down the hallway, you wouldn't see that risk assessment posted on their door, because I find that that's a little bit of an invasion on the occupant, because they feel that they're giving off that impression that a lot has happened in their place, and they may not want that. I know that some people do, but as soon as you walk into their unit, before they even go into an affected area, this needs to be posted in a high visible area. As well as if you're working in the common property of the building, I would post this right at the front entrance of the foyer of that complex. So right when you walk in, you're going to have a clear visual of that risk assessment of any issues that anybody could come into, any trip hazards, falls, any lighting, anything that could be of any risk to any of the workers or people living within the complex. So those are the key things that would have to be posted to make sure they're clear and visible. After that's done, you can get going on starting to mitigate the loss. So you can start your extraction. You can have the crew chief start to designate technicians to each area so they're not overlapping each other. You want to make sure that everyone is going in as the most effective and efficient protocol from what is passed from the project manager onto the crew chief, and then start mobilizing the actual labor work. So I think that's pretty much a crystal clear presentation of what I figure is key points that need to be performed when you first take the call, right to when you get on site, and then the first, I'd say, hour while you're on site. Those are key things that really need to be followed, because you're going to be requested, you're going to have requests of these key informations of the cause of loss, the source of loss, where it originated, who's responsible. That's really not your position as a restoration contractor to point fingers and say who's responsible, but within the Strata bylaws and how they designate who would be responsible, that's up to them. But you can at least give a full package data with photos and a report that can be presented to whoever needs to make those decisions, and then at least they know that you've done your due diligence as a restoration contractor. So thank you so much for taking the time to go through this little bit of a course. And here's some ways to contact me. There's my website there, insurancerestorationpro.com. You can contact me on my email, as well as I'm constantly doing updates on Twitter and Facebook, and my professional LinkedIn address is right there. So feel free to contact me for anything, as well as if you're interested on any more courses that I'll be putting out, please send me an email. Get a hold of me through any of these You can send messages on any one of those, and I will send you links to updates on new courses that are coming out. So hopefully you found this valuable, and I look forward to either speaking with you or meeting with you at some courses, or there's usually expos, different places. It's always nice to be able to network with people out in the field and different places, and you want to help each other be the best you can be, and just get to know everyone in the industry as best as you can. And I want to thank you very much for taking the time to go over this little bit of a course, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks very much. Have a great day, guys.